making the act of eating, I think, into more of almost an act of self-care, I think can really be transformative, again, in terms of changing your relationship with food.
Okay, so you mentioned mindful eating.
Mhm.
Let's talk about what that is. Like, how do you define mindful eating?
Yeah, that's a great question because I see it. I think it's very much sort of in the zeitgeist now. I'll go by magazine covers and I see a lot of, a lot of comments about mindful eating, and I'm thrilled to see that because I think that most of us are eating mindlessly, and
Mm.
kind of like what I just described, what I call mindless eating, the opposite of mindful eating is mostly the multitasking, right? Again, doing a million things while we're eating, whether it's scrolling through the phone, reading, watching TV, driving, working, putting on mascara and shoving toast in your mouth, like
Right.
doing a million things while you're just eating. Like, if you think about well, you might be better at this, but when is the last time most people just sat down and just ate a meal? Like, no TV, no phone, no work, no distractions, literally just sit at a table and just eat a meal. This is something I work with my students and clients with, and it's something that many of them have never done, or at least have not done maybe in years. Like, their table is covered in clutter and, they can't even find their dining room table, let alone ever remember sitting down and eating at it. So that kind of thing. We also tend to eat too quickly, right? We eat very fast. We don't chew enough, just these sort of basic things.
Mhm.
Again, all kind of often part and parcel with multitasking. But again, what this does, this chronic multitasking, eating too quickly, just not paying attention to the act of eating, what this does is it really severs that mind body connection, right? It stops us from really being able to feel like, how does this food feel in my body? I'm sure you have this too, and I get it a lot. People ask questions like, should I eat grains, or should I eat strawberries, or should I eat dairy, or
Totally.
should I eat this? And there can be all kinds of reasons why people maybe should or shouldn't. But often it's like, it depends what works in your body. And one of the
Right.
only ways you're going to know that is how your body feels, and how it feels today with that food might be different than how it feels next week with that food, or how it feels when you're stressed and you eat that food might be different than how it feels when you're on vacation and you eat that food. You will never
Totally.
know that. You know, I can't tell them that. Dr. Oz can't tell them that. Like, the only thing that can tell them that really is their body. And so being able to practice something like mindful eating, which means not multitasking, sitting down, eating a meal. I don't mean you have to do this all the time. I know we're busy, but I
For
encourage my
sure.
students to just pick one meal or snack, maybe a day, just one, even if it's just an apple, that afternoon snack or something, and just practice sitting at a table, not your work desk, sitting at a table and
Mhm.
just eating. Like, notice how it smells, notice how it tastes, notice how it feels in your mouth, and practice that listening to your body. How does it feel in your body? Does your body like this apple? When has it had enough? Like, when does it feel satisfied? These are questions and sort of an experience that a lot of people are just not having. And my students,
Totally.
and you might experience this as well, they sometimes people have really lost the ability to really know how it feels to even be hungry. Like, when I say, are you hungry? Are you satisfied? Are you full? These are cues that they are not getting anymore, right? Because they haven't been practicing that.
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true. I totally get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So, okay, a few things there that I want to talk about. Well, number one, I used to be guilty of eating in front of my computer.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely something I had to be more mindful about. And
Yeah.
now, actually,
Good.
like taking a lunch break that's not in my office, that's not
Yeah.
with my phone, or like just taking a lunch break. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
that's made a huge difference. And I just feel better in my body when I do that.
Yeah.
Like, I can come back and revisit my work from a place of like more peace and more calm feeling, versus like rushing through my meal and trying to work on something. Like, it's not
Yeah.
satisfying that way to enjoy my meal that way. So,
Yeah, exactly. And also, as you know, I mean, it doesn't work well with our sort of the way our digestive system works, right? Your digestive system really needs to be in a place of relaxation, of rest and digest. And if you're in sort of fight or flight, like you're really, again, focused on work, especially if work is stressful, or if you're watching the news and it's stressing you out, or if you're scrolling through
totally.
your phone and you know, you're getting engaged that way, your body's really not going to even digest the food properly or really assimilate those nutrients properly because you're just not in the right mind frame. So it's
Totally.
important for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned, this is a bit of a random question. You
Yeah.
mentioned clutter on the dining room table.
Oh, yeah.
Do you find that that's an issue? Like, do you recommend to people to clear out that clutter? Do you find it has an impact?
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I say that only because most people have so much clutter on their dining room table that they just don't use it as a dining room table. It's just a
Right.
receptacle for crap. And so I encourage them to move it away just so they can sit there. But you're
Right.
right about I'm sure that just having that physical clutter does play a role because I also really do encourage people to sort of and sometimes I find people do this naturally when you do ask them to kind of sit down and take that moment like you are with your lunch break is I love when I see because I ask people to share pictures in my little mindful eating group, although and then put your phone away, of course. But I love it when I see people have sort of like a beautiful like cloth napkin and maybe light a candle and have like the nice
Right.
silverware and the nice plates out. Like it might seem like a silly thing, but it's really not because making the act of eating, I think, into more of almost an act of self-care I think can really be transformative again in terms of changing your relationship with food. A lot of people have a really, layered, toxic, weighty relationship with food, right? They've
Right.
maybe struggled with food for a long time. Maybe they have a history of watching parental figures, maybe a mother, often a woman in your life struggling with food, right? Really an unhealthy relationship with it, where it almost feels like the enemy, something I just have to do. I hear people say that all the time. I wish I didn't have to think about food. And I
Right.
understand that tendency, especially if you've spent decades dieting and you feel like food's the enemy. But I really encourage people to, again, as part and parcel of all this, start building a more loving relationship with food. Like have eating be like an act of self-care and self-love. And I think that means making it almost sort of a little sacred time for yourself. Again, like light that candle, bring out the nice plates,
Yeah.
have a flower or use the nice cloth napkins and I think you're right, clear off the clutter, like make it a nice little space for yourself and start making the act of eating an enjoyable moment for yourself instead of just something I have to do and food is just the enemy and
Right.
that
Yeah.
is not a healthy sort of mindset around how we're eating.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how can we make healthier habits feel easier to stick with?
Yeah.
I
That's a
mean,
big one.
obviously, the mindful eating is a big part of that.
Well, there's a couple of things we know from just a lot of research that's being done in the world of habits in general, whether it's about food or not. I did some training with BJ Fogg, who wrote the book Tiny Habits, and his student James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, that has been a bestseller for so long. They've been
Mhm.
doing a lot of great work in the world of habits. And there's a couple of things, there's two key things really that make habits stickier, as we might say, right?
Mhm.
Like feel more automatic and
Right.
feel less like you need willpower to do them. One is to just make them easier, right? So to just take out whatever the barriers are to you doing the thing. If you
Right.
want to create a habit of going for a walk every morning, make it easier for yourself. Put your shoes by the door before you go to bed. If you need help with something so you can get out of the house for an hour, set that up ahead of time. Do whatever you need to do to make it easier because your brain is always going to want to do things that are easier. So that's one thing, make it easier. That will help make it stickier. And then 2, make it more desirable, right? Your brain is always just gonna wanna do things that it enjoys. It does it seems really basic, but we are often trying to do things that don't feel good. We're trying to be like, "Oh, I have to go. I should exercise, so I need to go for a 3-hour run, or I need to
Right.
drive to the gym and blah, blah, blah," and that doesn't feel good sometimes, right? So any way you can make it feel more desirable, and there's lots of ways you can do that. You can create little rewards for yourself. Sometimes people are like, if I do this hour walk, then I'll give myself, 20 minutes on Instagram to scroll through or something. Set up
Right.
little rewards for yourself or just little fun celebrations. Again, there's a lot of research into how our brain loves immediate rewards. So if you can set up like an immediate way to celebrate, and it can be something as simple as like just giving yourself a little high five or something, which might seem funny and you might feel stupid doing it, but it actually really, the brain science is in about that, right? Your brain loves little celebrations, singing a little song to yourself in your head that makes you feel like you're a rock star or whatever. Whatever you need to do to make it feel more desirable. These are 2 key things that make it easy and make it more desirable will always make habits feel stickier.